I think them having forage as well, and the fact that they're not insignificant, means that at some point they may be valuable.
They're 4 stones, Oliver.
Yeah. Yeah, because they're 4 stones, they have armor 1, and they have the triggers, right? And then obviously if you put 12 cups of coffee on them, they're minions. You can wibble wobble in a pit trap and get infinite, but that's not good. So stop doing it, John, and everybody else in the bite chat who keeps trying to.
Howdy friends, Craig here. We got another deep dive into Ma Tucket. Got really 2 strong guests. Both of them are very accomplished Bayou players. A couple things to note. One, we recorded this before Gaining Ground Season 1 came out. So note that her creative cussing trigger on Horrible Hollerin' that hands out the focus, that changed to once per activation as they predicted in here on the podcast. There's also been changes to 12 cups of coffee, which was much needed. So it might be handy to have the cards close as we talk through things. Pay close attention to the discussion on timing when flipping for initiative and when you should consider pass tokens. I know many of you are playing this wrong, so it's a good takeaway. You might be surprised that the first model they hire into their crew is a versatile model. It's nice to learn what pools they feel the Trixie keyword excels in and which one it's weak in. They detail a particular faction that they think you should never play Ma into. They also talk about a specific Neverborn model and Neverborn keyword that they think is a hard counter to Ma. Another thing to watch out for is our discussion about Hard to Wound and Focus. I think you might be surprised to find out that maybe using Focus against a Hard to Wound model is not a good idea. Enjoy!
Playing a tabletop strategy game allows you to unplug and test your skills against friends. Every week, Third Floor Wars delivers useful strategies, discussions, battle reports, and reviews to tabletop games like Malifaux. If you want to get better at the games you already play, or discover the games other people are playing, you are in the right place. Craig and Ray welcome you to the Third Floor and the Tabletop Talk broadcast.
Craig here on the Third Floor. Today we're going to do a deep dive into the Bayou Master Ma Tucket and how the Trixie crew works in Malifaux 3rd Edition. My guests today are Oliver Borden and AJ Barr. Now, Oliver comes out of the Capital City Conference, and he played top table against Cody Hyatt at Nova this year. If you haven't listened to that Path to Podium episode for Nova, check it out. I'll have it in the show notes. It was a pretty epic match, and Oliver ended up 2nd overall in that big event. And for those of you in the Bayou chat, I'm sure you're familiar with Oliver. He has a few opinions about not only Bayou models, but every model out there. And he was also really, I think, one of the champion beta testers for Bayou and M3E. There wasn't a lot of them, but he was one, and he did a hell of a job with it. So, Oliver, welcome back to the Third Floor.
Hey, thanks. I tried. Didn't get Rooster's nerf the second time, but whatever. It's good for me, I guess.
Well, do what you can. So outside of Malifaux, Oliver, what have you been playing?
Mostly, I've been playing pen and paper RPGs and The Witcher, and then Malifaux. That's really it. I just kind of took a minute to just step back from mini games. Yep. Just focus on being happy in my general life, and now I'm coming back and playing.
What RPGs do you play?
So I tried Dungeon World by Adam Koebel, which is exceptional. I think he's one of the best designers of pen and paper RPGs, and designers in regards to RPG actual construction, the actual mechanics and everything. He has a really good YouTube channel where he does first looks and DMs and stuff. Just has really interesting insight on why we play games, and what makes a game fun, what makes a game interesting, what is the value of a narrative in a game versus the mechanics. So shout out to him, he's super cool. But yeah, just running basically one shots of that. I've been trying to get a copy of Torchbearer, which is impossible to find.
Yeah, I've heard that's good.
Yeah, it's basically a item simulator where you slowly die in a dungeon as you run out of torches. And I'm playing a one shot with Nick of 5 Torches Deep next week, which is also an item simulator where you just die. So basically just hard RPGs, the ones that you just don't win.
I've played all kinds of board games, all kinds of mini games and things like that. But my first love and passion was RPGs. I think that's going back to high school for me. And we actually had, pens and paper. It wasn't on stone then. But I've said it. Yeah, I've said it several times to a lot of people when we talk about gaming. To this day, as much as I love board games and mini games, nothing beats a good RPG game. Like that's the ultimate gaming for me. And I'm super excited because the people there's a group of guys here in the Southeast that I do twice a year. We do Camping for Gamers. So it's a bunch of dudes that get together twice a year. We go camping out in the woods. And for basically 3.5, 4 days, all we do is eat meat, sit by the fire, and play games. And the guys have been bugging me about running an RPG because a lot of the guys that go haven't done RPGs in a while, and some have never done it before. Mm-hmm. So this spring trip coming up, I'm actually going to do one, and I'm really excited about it. So I finally picked a system that because I've been out of it for 20, 30 years,
Everything's changed so much.
Oh, so much. So I found a system that I got real excited about, bought a disgusting amount of stuff for it. Nice. And have been, just getting ready to make that happen. And I'm super excited. So it's cool, man. It gives you a nice break. So I'm totally with you on that. And speaking of which, do you think any of you guys are going to come down for the spring trip?
Gavin's still very much on the plan that if we go to that, we're going to get murdered. So I don't know if I can convince him.
Well, out in the woods, you mean?
Yeah. He's definitely a fan of if we go, we're ending up in his stew.
Okay.
I'm trying to convince them though.
Tell them not to watch the Blair Witch Project.
Yeah, exactly.
So we'll see. I got to check my schedule for work.
We'd love to see you guys. It's a good time.
A bunch of people. So.
All right. So now AJ. So for those of you out in the UK, you have known AJ Barr for a while. He's qualified for Masters a few times and considered one of the best Bayou players in the UK. He's probably best known as part of the Flippin' Weirds group. And he finished 12th in this year's UK national ranking. So that's pretty impressive, man. But most recently, you podiumed in a 28-player League of Extraordinary Gentlemen event in just this January. So AJ, welcome to the third floor.
Thanks for having me, Craig.
This is long overdue, man. I was super excited when we got connected and found that Ma Tucket's been your girl.
Oh yeah,
so
games.
I have kind of a standard question that I've always asked guests, and I'm trying to switch it up a little bit. So I'm going to give you kind of a curveball. Is there any intellectual property out there, or a dead game out there that you think you'd love to see come back as a mini game? So is there something that an IP out there that you think would be a cool mini game?
There's two answers to that, really. What game I'd love to come back is like Warhammer. I run some Warhammer 6th edition tournaments. I'd like Warhammer Square Bases to come back, but like 6th and 7th before it gets big into 8th. I'd like that to come back. But if I had to think of the game out there, which I would really love, would be a Transformers game.
Oh, God. You know what? I wouldn't have never thought about that.
A Transformer game. I even thought about it. Wouldn't it be good if we had a Malifaux Transformer game? And
interesting.
You can go G1, G2. You could have like the Constructicons as a crew.
Yeah.
The Autobots and a few. You could even have Bumblebee as a totem, I suppose.
Sure, you could do. You have like a replace.
That's a shade, buddy.
A replace effect. To transform from the vehicle to the robot and stuff like that.
Yeah, there's never been a game of it. I mean, there's a.
Well, now I want a G.I. Joe one. So as soon as you said Transformers, like, oh God, I want G.I. Joe.
Yeah, that'd be my second. That'd be my second one. I think they've just released a game on the iPhone, like an app for it, but I've got to look at that.
Very nice. I like that idea. So ooh, boy, that got me a little excited. I like that idea, AJ. All right, guys. So what we're going to do here is we're going to obviously focus on Ma Tucket and the Trixie crew. And I want to get an idea of how each of these guys, how they build a Trixie crew. When do they pick Ma? So what is the scheme pool and the strategy that they like Ma in? Is there certain tech pieces that they will hire into the crew based on what that pool is, or maybe what the opponent is declared for a faction? And then last but not least, we're going to talk about second level play and really how to counter a Trixie crew. So to kind of get us started, AJ, I want you to think about the listener as somebody who's never seen Ma Tucket, never played Ma Tucket. Can you kind of give us an idea of what style of master she is?
She's more like she gives out a lot of focus, and it can be run as, if people look at it first, they look at it as a gun line. Straight away, they look at it as a gun line, but it can be used for more than a gun line. You can turn it into a beta crew. It can be a gun line. It can be fast. It can be all three, really. It's very versatile on doing everything. People get confused when it goes attacker and defender, and we just bunch up everything within a 3-inch bubble. And they think, where's it all going? And then as soon as the focus comes out, it's in for a surprise. They don't expect it. I mean, I always tell my opponents, there's a certain setup. I don't know if you want to run through setup now or run through it later.
We'll get to it later. Yeah. Just talking overall style right now, though. But
So I would say gun line is primarily the number one at the moment, but it can be other things as well. You can turn it into a beta crew.
Well, the impression I'm getting by what you're saying there, AJ, is that she can also shift gears. So maybe start off support, handing out the focus and things like that, shift to gun line and actually get up close and beat face if need be. So that's cool. Oliver, do you see her any different?
Yeah, a little bit. So I definitely think that she is an alpha striking crew. Her intent is to kill as many models as possible in the initial turns of the game by supporting her team with the focus bomb. The main difference, I would say, is her crew is also hyper AP efficient. You have Rooster Riders, which are 3 AP. You have Gracie, who's 5 AP. So you have the ability to transition away from just killing your opponent's models to immediately setting up, scoring all 3 points on turn 2, and then immediately setting up for the next 3 points, turn 3, and then scoring your strategy every turn. So she's very much a master who pressures your opponent on the scoreboard a lot more than she just pressures them without activating their models and with the activations. I personally don't think that she's too much of a beating crew. I'm not sure. I'm curious to hear what your thoughts are on how she turns into a beating crew. I think her herself is your main melee piece, along with Gracie.
And she's good, but so is Gracie.
They're very good. Yeah. Ma can min 5 people. So I think that's her main, that's her main value.
So taking a step back, Oliver, let's talk about really kind of the main mechanic signature abilities of a Trixie crew. So when we're looking at Ma, what really defines, what's the definitive ability? Yeah,
so the first and foremost ability is Horrible Hollering with the Ram Focus. When you use that ability, you get to move a model you push a model up to 5 inches. And then you also put a focus on every model within 3 inches of Ma herself. It's an aura. So it doesn't affect her herself. It's an open symbol, not the closed one. So I think that's by and far her most defining ability. Outside of that, sub-abilities, she has pit traps, which are helpful. Usually you're having between 1 to 3 of those in a game, sometimes more. And then Scamper, and then the 14-inch guns. The 14-inch guns are what leverage all of that focus, because, again, her first activation is usually 25 plus AP. So the 14-inch guns is what you're using that for, because you don't want to actually do anything on turn 1 other than shoot your.
Well, talk about Scamper. What does Scamper do?
Yeah, so if your opponent cheats within 6 of a model with Scamper, they get to shift 2 inches. So it can pull you out of melee. It can set you up so that way you can be in the right position to drop a scheme marker. Again, the whole crew is hyper efficient, so it's making sure that you're leveraging those instances where, normally I would have to walk 3 inches and then put a scheme, and now it's like, okay, I can shift 2 and then drop a scheme, and just the hair end of that scheme is going to touch that center line for hardest ley line. Those kinds of strategies are what really build and benefit the second level of play for her.
So AJ, if we're looking at Ma herself, so not the crew, but let's talk about Ma herself. Can we kind of go over her offensive capabilities? So what kind of offensive threat does she as a model have?
Yeah, she's very good when she gets into combat. Like Oliver just said, the first turn you're giving out all the focus. You make sure you got the rams, even if you got to just go with 3 stones to make sure you got the rams.
Yeah.
And then you just, I normally get Ma into combat round about turn 2 or 3. Because number 1, like Oliver said, she's doing the focus bomb. The little lass is pushing her forward. Then time I cycle through the cards, which we'll probably get to later how we get them, she's just going straight in, and I'll make sure I've got a good hand to do it. And and probably defensive when she gets the I like to charge in, do one attack, and then drop a pit trap, because with a giant wooden spoon, it's range 1, stat 6. It does 3, 4, 5 damage. Ram does the critical strike for +1 damage. But the mask is what people ignore. And I like to go for a stone for the mask to knock them into the pit trap.
Oh, nice.
So when they go into the pit trap, they get injured 1 and they get damaged 1. With a crow, it gives them injured 1, which I don't think is that great. So you're always looking for the.
Immediate disagree. Immediate disagree.
Okay, we'll get you in a second.
We'll get to that.
But if you knock them into the pit trap, even when they move out, there's another wound. It just brings them right down. You can also shoot them as well. She's got a gun, range 8, stat 5. Target suffers 2, 3. It's got a single blast on 2 and 3, and double blast on 2. Mm-hmm. Models damage, get poison 1. It's got 3 triggers. Good for a laugh. Draw 2 cards and discard a card on a tome. On the mask, plus damage by this action up to 3 in any direction, which is always handy for pushing things away or into pit traps. And a ram, target suffers 1 damage, then drops a scrap marker into base contact with the target. Don't use the gun that much.
So this ties back a little bit to what Oliver was saying too, but looking at a lot of these triggers and the horrible hollering, there's it seems to be a lot of movement efficiency in there too, don't you think, AJ? I mean, do you find yourself walking less in a Trixie crew than say with other crews?
Yeah, I'll go with that. Definitely.
How about you, Oliver? What do you think about her offensively?
Yeah, so offensively, I would say the first 2 things to focus on, and this is kind of like how you kind of like set up every turn, is you look at her careful planning and you can try and get a tome. So she can cycle up to 4 cards on her initial turn, which gives her access to a lot more suit cards than a lot of normal masters. She just has a lot of initial cycling.
So what does careful planning do?
Yeah, so careful planning is it's kind of like her, outside of horrible hollering, it's like what they designed for her to have as a signature ability. So when you flip for initiative, depending on the suit, you get a different benefit. You can push people, you can add shields to people, you can get pass tokens, which is very, very good, and you can draw cards. And then if you cheat for it, obviously, you can get a benefit there. So I'll focus more on that in the support section and like how she's supportive. But the main thing is you just have a stack of higher cards. So when you actually get into attack range with her, and again, usually for me, middle to end of turn 2 is when I'm trying to fight with her.
About the same time as AJ.
Yeah, I never want to walk with her though. So turn 1, I'm focus bombing 3 times, and then moving her with Gracie, and then probably pushing her with Little Lass in addition, or just moving her once with Gracie. If I can get the focus trigger off on her with Gracie, then I will try and do a shoot action, because her gun is actually a min 4 if you get the right trigger. Right. It's 3 damage with Trash Vipers, so it's 2 + 1. And then in addition, it does a poison. So it's a 4 damage attack that also does blast. So it can do 2 damage to other people. It's really good against people with armor. It's really good with people who have any kind of like resistances. But otherwise, I'm usually charging her in. She has the ability to ignore anything when charging. She has diving charge. So she can dive through a brick building. She can dive across a wall. She can literally ignore anything present for her charge action. So you can use that to get away. You can use that to jump in. And then I'm usually cheating either rams and then like with a stone, and then also putting a ram into play to min 5 people, because that kills people really fast. Or if it's early in the turn, I'm going to almost always cheat and stone for the crow, because while 1 injured is not a significant impact immediately, 1 injured over an entire turn can really make a difference, and 2 almost immediately kills a model. If you put 2 injured on a model, the ability to, like, imagine the amount of times in games where you have a stat 7 and your opponent's got a 5, and you're just like, oh, I got a 4, and they're like, I got a 5, and you're like, okay, I beat you. Did you want to cheat? Like, all of those instances are compounded, and then all of your like models have that.
Yeah. Injured, people don't realize it very often, but injured puts pressure on your opponents.
I think it's the best negative effect in the game by like a long mile.
So, AJ, based off of what Oliver's been saying, when you've been saying, and looking at her card, she seems suit intensive. Now, granted, she's got some great card draw, but to really get the most out of her, it sounds like you need to bring a lot of stones. So, I'd be curious to know: do you bring a lot of stones with her?
I only bring 3 stones.
Wow!
At the beginning, just so that you've got to make sure you get them 3 rams. Obviously, at the start, like Oliver said, you with your careful planning, if you've got a low tome, because it doesn't matter on the first turn of winning initiative. So if you've got a low tome, throw it in, draw 2 cards. With the 7 you get, because you probably always take big brain, so you've got 7 cards, 9, and then you can always cycle through the rest to try and get the rams. But if you can't, you've got to use the 3 rams to get the focus off, and obviously you get minus to get some back, but it's mainly 3. I start off with 3 because I definitely want the focus. If I can't get the focus, there's problems.
Yeah, right.
Focus straight away.
Now, Oliver, generally speaking, you bring a lot of stones with every crew. Does that change with her?
Yes, absolutely. So for most masters, I bring between 7 to 10 stones. Yeah. So and that's very much like a Virginia Beach meta thing. We all very much bring a ton of stones. We value them very highly because we think that Alpha Strike is very important in the game. The game isn't going to go past turn 4 most of the time, so you want to win immediately and score turns 2 and 3. So it doesn't matter if I don't have any of the models later if I just kill all of you now, is the logic. So, but the main reason for Ma that I cheat on that is, one, you want as many physical models as possible on that focus bomb, because for every single model you have in addition, you're buying 3 AP. So the logic is basically, I don't necessarily need everything else later when I can just get more value immediately, make her hyper efficient immediately, A, and B, with Bryn and the ability to cycle 4 cards on turn 1, you almost always have your ram. So I bring 1 to 3 stones with her. You have this Soulstone Miner, which is also going to give you stones. But again, just to focus on it, you have her ability to put a tome down and you draw 2 cards. And then her bonus action draws 2 cards and discards a card. So what you'll usually do is set up the 3 inches, have everybody around it, and then throw a pit trap behind her turn 1, cheat a low tome in, draw 2 cards, discard a card, and then that's an additional set of cards. So you basically have access to the ram always, almost. So you need a 6 of rams to get off Hollerin. So it is statistically unlikely that you will not have it, right? So I mean, we can always play for perfect, but I'd rather just want to win. Better lucky than good always. That's very much my strategy most of the time in Malifaux.
As far as keeping her alive, we obviously we talked about the Scamper, which allows her to push away. Is there anything else, AJ, that's keeping her on the table?
Take some upgrades. I don't know if we talked about upgrades going on.
Yeah, like what? What upgrades have you considered with her or put on her?
The only upgrade I take is the 12 cups of coffee.
Okay.
That normally,
upgrade.
That's got to go on all the time. I mean, I played a Colette player at tournament last weekend, and I think it saved my bacon. It did, because she couldn't do zeros.
For people that have not been abused by 12 cups of coffee yet, AJ, can we talk real quick about what it does?
Yep. So enemy actions within 4 cannot declare 0 actions at all. So it's really good at shutting down their bonus actions.
Yeah, they just don't exist.
Plus, she's got another 0 action as well, and it's everything within 3 range. It needs a 4 to go off, and remove enemy scheme markers within range. And this model gains focus 1 for each marker removed in this way. So when my opponent's going for harness the ley line, I try and make a turn 2 for that line, remove two markers. She's banged up focus 2, and then she gets stuck in turn 3.
Generally speaking, in an average 5-round game, how often does she see the end of turn 5 for you, AJ?
Pretty much, I would say 8 out of 10 games she survived.
Okay. So I would assume, she's got 6 defense, which is good. She's got, she's got the 12 wounds. The Scamper is a big deal. And really diving charge in its own way.
It gets out of trouble. Like Oliver said earlier on, if she wants to get out of there and she's got 2 wounds left, she's gone. And that's the idea, is just get out of dodge and try and just drop schemes or do something if she gets really, really low. But when she goes in, she's normally I play that my first couple of turns, I build up a very good hand. So it's very rare that when she gets into combat, she dies.
Yeah, a good control hand is good defensive tech, isn't it? Yeah.
Well, that's it. Well, I sit where Oliver, by sound of it, is Alpha Strike. I wait till my opponent comes to me.
Yeah.
And then all the gun lines to get Ma going in like for turn 2 or 3, and I'll make sure my hand's shit up to do the business.
Right. Well, and I think too, and we're seeing this a lot of in 3 as well, is that I think that there's several ways to be successful with these masters because of the flexibility, especially when you have a master like this that can shift gears. Right. It sounds like there's a couple of different ways to be effective and approach it, which adds some things. Oliver, is there anything else that we really need to talk about, Ma, before we move on to the crew?
I mean, she gives a +1 to your initiative. I think that's relevant.
That's big.
Things just for like new Ma players, you need to understand that the +1 to initiative occurs prior to pass tokens. So what happens is you flip, you add a +1 immediately, you declare winners or losers or draws, and the person who had initiative last turn is to cheat first if there's a tie. So this is weird, and it shouldn't exist this way, but thanks, weird. Please God, just make these all the same phase. But pass tokens get added afterwards. You're usually outpacing your opponent in regards to that. So there are times when your opponent has to cheat first, even though you're technically winning. Right. So they're technically winning. So,
right. What's key there from the timing perspective is the pass tokens don't happen until after cheat. Right. So, and determining who cheats first is determined before pass tokens are calculated.
And that's really significant.
It's a huge deal. It's a huge deal.
The other part to it is it is very common that turn 1, your opponent will just say, yeah, whatever. Okay, that's fine. You win. Right. Like you flip like a 13 or something. And they've got like a 4. No, yeah, whatever. I'm not wasting a flip on this. That is your moment to cheat. Like if you have a garbage card in your hand, always cheat down if you're winning initiative and they passed. If you want a different effect for your careful planning. Other than that, I think focusing on who to push with Horrible Hollering is probably going to be one of the main differences for AJ and me. I almost always push out my Roosters, and I almost always push out attack pieces. So I'm going to push Roosters, I'm going to push Bushwackers, things like that.
There also was one other upgrade we didn't mention, was which I don't take it, but it's there, is you can put on Ma is the Gremlins in the gorilla suit. With that gorilla suit.
So she can't be charged.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And that could be another form of defensive tech as well.
Yeah.
So guys, let's take a quick break. When we get back from this break, I want to talk to you really about your core crews. And one of the reasons that I was excited about having both of you on is I think there's going to be some overlap where you guys are going to agree on some things, but I also get a sense that the two of you play Ma a little bit different, which I think is great for this type of deep dive. So we're going to find out for Oliver and AJ, what are some models that are auto hires? What are models they bring in 80% of the time? And how do they take advantage of out of keyword and versatile models? So we'll be right back. Howdy, friends. Did you know on Spotify you can listen to all of your favorite artists and podcasts in one place for free? You don't even need a premium account. Spotify has a huge catalog of podcasts on every topic, including your favorite pod, Tabletop Talk from Third Floor Wars. On Spotify, it's easy to follow your favorite podcast so you never miss an episode. Premium users can download episodes to listen to offline wherever you are. They make it easy to share what you're listening to with all of your friends on Instagram. So help support all of the content coming from Third Floor Wars and download the Spotify app. Search for Tabletop Talk on Spotify or browse podcasts in the Your Library tab. Make sure to follow us so you never miss an episode of Tabletop Talk. Howdy friends, Craig here. Nothing makes Malifaux easier than having the right tools. Here at the Third Floor, we love all the licensed Malifaux goodies from Custom Meeple. Not only are they helping support this podcast, they sell custom-made weird licensed tokens and terrain. They sell it all. Crew boxes, terrain, markers, tokens, and even a 3x3 full Malifaux board. Custom Meeple sells a complete M3E token set covering every marker and token you need to play. Custom Meeple are the source for the official accessories for Malifaux. Everything is designed by hand and authorized by Weird Games. Check them out at custommeeple.com, that's with one M, or follow the link in the show notes. Up your Malifaux game and be sure to tell them Craig from the Third Floor sent you. If you use the promo code Third Floor Friend, all one word, THIRDFLOORFRIEND, you'll get a 5% discount and help support the podcast. It's valid on everything except retail products and playmats. So now that we got a sense, of what Ma can do, and part of the reason I think that we're starting to hear about how good Ma is the flexibility that both Oliver and AJ talked about. Now we got to talk about the crew, and obviously the first thing we talk about the auto hire is literally an auto hire is the totem. So AJ, can we talk about Ma's totem?
Yes. So that she's got the Scamper, like keyword. She's insignificant, so she can't drop schemes and strats. She's ignored for all purposes. The pounce after enemy model ends a move engaged. After an enemy model ends a move engaged by this model, if it's not the enemy model activation, it gains fast. That never happens. So never happens at all. Yeah. She's always at the very, very back, little lasses, and what she's there for is the pushes.
So what role does she fill in a Ma crew?
She's got two roles. She's got a very sneaky role, but a main role in the crew is for moving models. And she needs a 7 of any card, and she can push any model in 5 inches in any direction.
Nice.
So it's very good for when you've got that focus bomb with Mara at the beginning. You've got a choice. You can either move the roosters out to left to right, because you normally always got one rooster on the left and one on the right of the bubble, or you can push Mara up. It all depends on what your opponent's doing. If your opponent's coming to you, push the roosters out. If he's staying away, go a rooster and Ma to push them forward. And she's always got a very, very sneaky, because she stays in the backfield. If someone's coming through with breakthrough or search the ruins, 0 is remove an enemy scheme marker within 2. There's no card draw. There's no target number. It's just gone, removed.
Yeah, and that's huge. That's absolutely huge, especially to your point, AJ, because she's going to be in the backfield anyway.
Yeah, exactly. And she draws a card from the top of the discard pile. She draws the top card. But it's removing that scheme marker. That has got me so many points where people just think, they ignore her for the schemes and the strats, because you think, and everything's out of range and gone. Plus, I can push models away.
Yep.
She's great.
She's nice. So Oliver, what is your first actual hire? So what's a model? What's a model that it's in every single one of your crews?
Gracie.
Gracie.
And the main reason I take Gracie in every single Ma game is because, and this is just a general Bayou tip, right? If your master's actions are more valuable than their movement, however you want them forward, you should bring Gracie. So Ma
and we should note that Gracie is not Trixie.
No, she is versatile. But I think she is so vital to the plan. If you don't bring her, it can be awkward to unpack the package. It can be awkward to unpack the focus bomb. She's very hard to kill. She's armor 2. She's 5 AP, so she's reckless. So that makes her a 3 AP model if you do reckless. Alternatively, you can ride with me, so that's moving the target. And then for some reason, she's got the only trigger in the game that gives more value out of ride with me. If you get a tome on ride with me, she also puts a focus on the person she moves.
That's good.
And usually, if you set it up right, she's a 50 mil base, right? So you're pushing her forward, and then you can put the other target on the opposite side of her, and they can be 2 inches away from her. So a lot of times, she'll be actually the head of basically my attack line, 2 inches away from Ma, push her forward, put Ma on the other side of herself, put a focus on Ma, and then do whatever else she wants to do. And when she does that, you just got so much value out of it. And then when she has 3 AP on her, again, she's whip 6 too, so she's good defensively in regards to actual, mental attacks, psychic attacks, whatever spells. And so she can get into the scrimmage, and she and Ma are basically the line that stops the enemy from coming in. So you have all these gun lines that they want to go interact with Gracie or Ma, and you have people who are just shooting them off the table, and they can't get to them because she's the defensive line, basically.
Well, and she's a huge damage threat to boot. So Gracie brings a lot.
Huge. Yeah, she's a hyper AP efficient model that is almost impossible to kill if you set your order activations appropriately. She can eat people. If she eats people, then she heals. She is hard to kill. So a lot of the time your opponent's forced into a situation where they have to attack her, knock her to hard to kill, and then if you hold high cards in hand like your red or your 13, you can force the next attack to fail, attack back, and then on the counter punch, you kill that model, eat them. Or she has tear off a bite. So all you have to do is use tear off a bite, and then all of a sudden you have value. And again, this goes back to wall models are either hyper AP efficient for me or extremely deficient for my opponent, right? So she puts your opponent in a position where she's hard to kill and healing. That means immediately she can really screw up your opponent's plans because they can go all in to kill her. Her armor can mitigate it, and then all of a sudden she can heal back up, and they have to spend 2 more AP just to attack her and kill her.
Yeah, yeah. Now, how about you, AJ? Do you bring Gracie in to most of your crews?
For the 6 games at the weekend, I only took her once because I promised Oliver that I would.
And what did you find? Did you like her?
Yeah, she's not bad. She's good. Like everything what Oliver said was right. She's very good into combat. But see, most of the players over here know how good she is, so they normally put every AP in and they drop her straight away because her movement is only 4. I know you've got the 0 to see. You've only got the 0 can do ride with me or give her reckless. You can't have both, unfortunately. So normally so that's either move 12 inches. Or move 5, then move 8. So yeah, 5 and 8. So they normally take her down so much. They just pour everything into her and take her down. When the opponent leaves her alone, she can have a field day.
So what's your first hire for you then, AJ? What do you always bring in?
I think the Roosters has got to go in. You've always got to put 2 Roosters.
Let's talk Roosters.
Yeah, you always have to hire Roosters. You can't play without them.
Yeah. Roosters, I think, now they used to be people said they was really broken in the last edition before they got a fix. And people's even complaining even more now.
Yeah, they're worse now.
Oh, yeah, they're so good. So they got the keyword. They can charge, they ignore they got frenzy charge, so they ignore the once per activation restriction on the charge. 8 wounds. Defense 5, willpower 4, which is their weakness. Movement 7, size 3.
Oh, that's the part that just is disgusting.
7. Oh, it's great. It's like in Turf War. Yeah, I can claim that to the left straight away in the first activation by going reckless because that's their 0 go reckless to get fast.
Yeah,
but their gun, it's a fantastic gun. It's range 14, stat 5, and the target suffers 2, 3, 5 damage.
It's the spike at the end that kills it.
Yep. And it's the, on a mask, they've got reposition. They move up to 3. When they get into combat, they're even better.
Yeah.
They've got their beak. It's stat 5 again, and it does 2, 4, 5 damage. If they got the ram trigger, it's rip and tear. They can take another attack action against the same target, and they put a pause to the duel.
So there's a couple things that I think people need to keep in mind as we're going
to the card. Sorry.
Yeah, well, we'll head back there, but there's something that people need to keep in mind as AJ's talking here. So he's talking about on the guns, we got a 2-3-5. On the beak, we've got a 2-4-5. And then you've got that rip and tear trigger on the ram, which is not built in. You've got a really nice bowled over trigger on the mask. But keep in mind where this model's coming from. It's coming in a crew that is going to be handing out focus like candy. So your chances of being able to get that 5 to happen are much higher than you would normally think for any other model. Yeah. And 2, think about the card cycling we've already been hinting at. You're going to hear more and more of it as we go. So hitting and being able to cheat in those high rams to get that second attack. Rooster Riders are a model that until you see it on the table, you can't read it and know how disgusting they are. They read on the card. When you read the card in isolation, you go, all right, 7 cost. That seems reasonable. When you see it on the table, they're a 10-point model. It's really pretty amazing. What did you want to talk about on the front of the card, AJ?
So on the front of the card, they've got grit. So when this model is reduced to half of its health, it gets a plus to the duels and the damage flips.
Oh, it's so good.
So that is so fantastic. So what I do, I let my opponent, I get within 14, get a couple of focus shots off to burn a couple of focus or one focus. And when they shoot back and get in range, I let them take them down. Even if they take 3 health, I'll go reckless just to go to halfway. Then I'm charging in. I'm getting a pause. I'm getting a pause to the attack. If I'm focusing, I'm getting a double.
Yeah,
and the same to the damage. I'm guaranteed to do 4 damage. And because I'm going to rig the deck, and we're going to talk about that later on, I'm guaranteed to get a high card. And yeah. I took Archie out in one round of combat once.
The first time one of these chickens get into you, you see it happen in front of you for the first time. You're like, I can't believe this. Like all of this just happened, and my model is gone. Like you have deleted my model. It's pretty incredible. So Oliver, after Rooster Riders, where do you head?
Well, I do want to comment on something on Roosters. So they have 2 significant weaknesses. They have their whip, and they have a 0-inch melee. Now, this is something where AJ and I may disagree. I think that if you ever get a Rooster in melee, you fucked up somewhere. I think that their 7 movement is extremely valuable, and they should be used to harry people and to keep back. I've gone into melee with a Rooster probably 1 time in the last 10 games I've played.
So you like to keep them out, I assume, to take advantage of that move 7 for scheming and repositioning?
But more important than that, it is AP deficient for your opponent to attack them, right? So if your opponent is in a position where they need to attack a Rooster, they have to move twice most of the time. So they have to walk, and then they have to walk charge. At that point, if they scamper or if they cheat, I can scamper, and usually I'm going to focus defense if they're walk charging into me. And then all of a sudden, I can scoot away. And then I can just unload the rest of my focused attacks into it. That model's dead. Oftentimes on turn 1, I'm going to be pushing my Roosters up because my intent is to shoot 3 times into their models, and I'll focus kill 1 or 2 things. The main thing is you want to kill them before they have activations. So you want to kill their AP while you protect your own. If I'm ever taking a walk action or a charge action, I've lost AP because later on I'm either losing that model or I've given them AP back by making them not have to walk. This is something that is, I think, the biggest step between level 1 and level 2 play with Roosters is the melee is really, really hot. I mean, it is. It looks amazing. It's good. It looks so good. And if you get in the melee, you're going to kill whatever it is. The problem is you just sunk 3 AP, and that you're going to lose it. That model is going to die. They do not have the defensive tech to sustain a counter punch. And this is something that Nick and I and Gavin argued with for probably 3 or 4 months in the beta, until finally I was like, you know what, I'll just play them the way you guys are saying instead of using them as the melee machines I assume they are. And all of a sudden my win rate spiked exponentially, and I was immediately posting on the forums, these need to be nerfed, these need to be nerfed immediately.
Yeah. And Nick and Gavin, for those of you that are listeners, are there two other guys in that same meta that Oliver plays in. What were you going to say, AJ?
See, what Oliver's made a good point, but it's also, you got to remember, what are you sending the Rooster Riders into at the end of the day? Because most of the things, they're normally Rooster Riders, don't know how you play, Oliver, but mostly they go on the flanks to the left and right. Yeah, nearly all the time. I go right
up the center with them.
Right, so they can. So I use Mar up the center with whatever's left in my crew. So the Rooster Riders come in like horns of the buffalo coming round the side. So on their side, most of my opponents, they're going to have 5-point scheme runners.
Yeah, bolt tongue and stuff like that.
Yeah. So that's what they're doing. They're stopping the scheme runners. They're having a couple of pop shots. Take the scheme runners out. Come in. If they've got a big henchman up there, which is like hard to wound, and you're not going to do a lot of damage, you're right, Oliver. You keep it back. So it all depends on what you're playing against.
I mean, I'd agree.
What's significant, I think, to say here about the Rooster Riders, though, is that they're a huge ranged threat that can also handle themselves in melee, and that's a big deal. So whether you think you should have them in melee or not, I honestly don't care. That's a play style thing. What's significant is when you have a ranged model that can handle itself in melee, that's a big deal, and that's where you just don't see that outside of Rooster Riders, to be quite frank with you. Yeah, it really is. So Oliver, after Rooster Riders, where do you look?
Next up, so my core list is going to have Gracie in every list. It's going to have Bushwackers, in every list usually, or Soulstone Miners. And the reason I say it's usually between those two is those are my flex spots. So I either bring 2 Soulstone Miners and 1 Bushwhacker, or 2 Bushwhackers and 1 Soulstone Miner, because they fit similar roles in that regard, right? Like, so they're both things in swarmy schemes. They do it very differently, right? So when I pull up a list, the first thing I look at, because that's my main decision, I almost always bring 2 Roosters. I almost always bring Gracie. I bring Bryn. And then all of a sudden it's just really, am I bringing 2 Bushwhackers and Soulstone, or am I bringing 2 Soulstones? And the main question is, can I score something just by being in the right place at the right time? If the answer is yes, I'm bringing Soulstone Miners.
Right.
If I have to actually interact, then most of the time I'm going to bring Bushwhackers. And that breaks down further to, is my opponent very, very weak to guns? If yes, instead ignore that if the schemes are relatively easy, because I can just have my Roosters score them once my opponent's all dead, and I'll bring 2 Bushwhackers and I will set them forward just 3 inches outside my deployment, and then just put them in the focus bubble.
And I think, and I'm not going to want to spend too much time on Soulstone Miners, but because we've talked about them a few times on the show over the last 50 episodes.
They're weird. They're weird in Mavo, so there are a couple things.
Yeah, no, and we definitely will talk about them. But I do want to talk about Bushwhackers because it's a pretty unique model. Can you walk me through, Oliver, what Bushwhackers bring to a Trixie crew?
Yeah, so the main thing is they have From the Shadows, stealth, and pit traps. So they can set up the pit traps initiating in the game. And the reason that's relevant when you bring them is because on their gun, there's an ability called Clever Ruse that when you shoot somebody, you can push them towards a pit trap. So that does not say enemy only. I want to point out also, so you can shoot your own models, cheat min damage, or relent, and then move them more if you need to. I've done that in games before when I want to interact, things like that. But more importantly, it's going to set you up in those positions where, they've got the captain, and the captain is an aura that makes it so I can't do damage to them. Okay, I'm going to shoot them. I don't care if I focus or not. I'm just going to shoot. I'm going to put in my high mask. I'm going to beat you, pull you out of the captain's aura. Okay, now I'm going to shoot focus, and I'm going to cheat my ram in. The biggest thing is they have a crit strike on their gun. They have the same gun as Roosters, except the fact that it ignores cover. So Roosters used to have that. They changed it. But yeah, so when you're crit striking with them, you're shooting min 3. Min 3 on a gun is exceptional. Again, you have to assume that every single melee action is AP inefficient because you have to walk at some point to get into melee. Guns, you don't always have to take that assumption. So if you're able to min 3 things, it is substantially more valuable to min 3 things with a gun than it is to min 3 things with
a range. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, it's crazy. So they're probably very valuable mostly because of that and the combination of stealth. They're hard to interact. Yeah, they're very hard to interact with. They're hard to get to. If you want to get towards them, they can put traps in your way. They have sweet ass hats. I mean, I just really think that guy's got a bird on his head. I can't oversell that. That is.
So with the Soulstone Miners, Oliver, you hinted that, and again, I don't want to go through the card on the Soulstone Miners, but
with the Bushwhacker. So that's
I want to talk about that. So talk to me about what makes him unique in Trixie.
Yeah. So the main thing is they have 4 AP. So that's step 1, right? Turn 1 you're using your Soulstone Miners as pass tokens to create a Soulstone, focus, dig underground. That is one of your pass actions that you're going to use initiating the game. You're going to use Maw first. You're going to push out all your stuff. You're then going to use Soulstone Miners to force them to use their actions. If you win initiative, you obviously make them go first because it's always better on turn 1. But the main thing is that when they pop up, they're attacking people with focus. So you can get that armor-piercing attack. You can get drop down a hole consistently. And that drop down a hole is not something that is anywhere close to a reasonable ability. It's place a target in a base contact with a target-friendly scheme marker or friendly pit trap marker within 6 of its current position. So in my finals game or semifinals game with Steve at Nova, there was a point where I popped up a Soulstone Miner, attacked a guy that he just summoned, some 7 or 8 point ghost. I don't know. It's the one people always complain about building. It's got a million parts. Attacked it, threw down the hole, and then there was exactly a ski mark within 6 inches, or not ski, sorry, pit trap. And then I put it on the other side of that pit trap, engaging Big Brain Bryn and 2 other models. And so all of a sudden I've attacked this model, moved it out of position something like 8.5, 9 inches, because base movement and base size is a thing. Yep. And all of a sudden you can just take a model and then throw it either on the other line of your scrimmage, so you can auto kill it with, your 10-point models against my 50 points. I wonder who's going to win. So it just lets you do those things. And then in addition, obviously it's funding your soul stones. Her crew actually doesn't use a lot of stones outside of Halloran. And Ma herself buying stones for ram attacks to min 5 people. So
AJ, we talk about Bryn. So I get the feeling that Bryn makes a lot of your crews.
Oh, every time.
Every time.
Yeah. So what does Bryn bring to Trixie?
Normally he just stays in the backfield. He don't really ever come forward. So this is the thing where Gracie would be handy to bring him upfield, but he's normally always cycling cards. That's all he ever does is cycle. He's great for Arcane Reservoir to get the extra card, counter the possibilities, to look through 10. Everyone knows what Big Brain does. He so you can look at the.
Let's assume they don't. So
okay,
just to clarify, that's an ability that you flip the top 10.
Yep. So first of all, he looked at the top three cards of his deck. Off the top first, intuition. So he looks at the top 3 cards, puts them back in any order, flips it over. He needs a 7. So when he gets a 7, he can draw 10 cards off the deck, put them into discard pile. You can go all the way through the discard pile and put 3 back into the deck, shuffle them in, and then draw 1. You'll do that twice. That's what Bryn always does.
I use them differently.
Well, what's nice about Bryn, though, is that you're getting him at a discount, because we see Bryn in every Bayou crew, and they're paying 9 for him. You don't have to, because his actual, he actually is a Trixie model.
Yeah. If you get close, if models getting close, then I'm going to try and give you slow, or do some of his other defense abilities. He's really good against Shenlong. If Ma thinks you've got a problem with Shenlong, I don't think she has, because we'll sit back, we will shoot you at range. When Shenlong gets in and does his ability where what's the word for it? Irreducible damage on one of his trigger. Bryn will say, I knew you were going to do that. He discards a card, and that trigger's automatically gone.
Yep.
And then you scamper away with the model, and then he dies.
It's funny. I had not thought about a Trixie crew as being a potential hard counter, but that makes a ton of sense with that ranged threat, and then Bryn sitting there, really being able to reduce the damage output of Shenlong. That's interesting. Oliver, you said that you use Bryn a little bit differently.
Yeah, I actually use Bryn super differently. I use him primarily for the you're going to do that trigger, so I actually get him pretty far forward. He's actually an exceedingly tanky model. A lot of people play him a little scared, but he has Serene Countenance, which is just crazy. Ruthless never gets there, right? So, and then in addition to that, he has the Intuition. Now, there is some discussion over Intuition's interaction with Calculated Possibilities right now. It probably does need an FAQ, so hopefully our listeners will live in a better world than us. But presently, the discarding the top 10 cards is a cost. You have to pay that cost before you flip cards, actually. They just confirmed that this week. So presently, Intuition and Calculate don't actually work together. You flip 10, you immediately discard the top, and then you flip a blind card out of it. So it does make Calculate weaker. I think it's a really strong ability. I almost never use it twice, and I actually don't always use it. I use his Sharp Wit a lot. I use his Sober Up a lot. I tend to push him up with Little Ass or Ma, and I'm charging people with him. If you get into melee with him, whoever is in melee with Bryn is never getting out of melee with Bryn, because if you get into melee with Bryn, right, you're having to take a disengage action against my melee. I'm Wit 7, so now you're almost always losing. You're not getting super far, and the first thing I did getting into melee with you was hit you and give you slow. So all I'm going to do
he's a tarp. He's a tarp.
Right, he's just a huge tarpet, and that's how I use him a lot. Like I said earlier, the drop down a hole, I will throw people into Bryn's melee. I will shoot people with Bushwackers and throw them towards Bryn, and then he just hits people and slows them. The best way to kill a model that you don't want to kill is to give it slow.
Yep.
So, I mean, when you're playing against Kirai and you don't want to kill her totem, slow it. when you're playing against, any other monster that you're like, oh, this is a terrifying thing, and it takes way too much to kill it. Like, oh, Serena Bowman, okay, she's almost impossible to kill. Well, you can slow her and make her not super efficient, and then put her God's nowhere. And then he has pulling the strings. The biggest thing is it's almost a free obey. It kills the target. However, you can remove a scheme marker to not kill the target. So you can obey somebody. The thing is, it doesn't say ally scheme or enemy scheme. It just says scheme. So you can pick up schemes with him too. He's just a hyper weird utility piece who kind of does everything, and he looks like he goes in a lot of different directions. So you can play him a lot of different ways. I think as a tar pit, that's my preference, because again, my whole strategy with Ma is to either be hyper AP efficient while also taxing my opponent's AP as much as possible, because that's when she really becomes broken, in my opinion, is when you are letting your opponent get a third of their AP or half of their AP, meanwhile you're getting an entire game's worth of AP multiple times in a row.
So AJ, for you, do you find, I'm looking over the other Trixie models. How about Trixie Bell? Are you using Trixie Bell at all with Ma?
I hardly ever use Trixie, but
I'm noticing that.
But with what you said about Bryn, if I just 1 second go back to that, I find that if we rig the deck, get it down many little cards as possible in that deck, going in with the Roosters, and I know he says AP efficient, but if my opponent, I'm normally over the weekend in the 3 or 4 of my games, I was taking out 3 models in turn 1.
Yeah.
I mean,
which is what Oliver's talking about.
Yeah, you get that deck right down and take him out. But I do agree with you, Oliver, that if you was going to be in play fair, I think you should only do the draw the cards. What's it called? Counter the possibility only once. I think it's going to get nerfed down to about once.
I think it probably will be. I think the FAQ adjustment really hinders it, because you have to have a card to cheat out of your hands. The biggest thing, or the pseudo FAQ. They confirmed it on, I think that was the forums, and someone posted on it.
Makes it fair.
I mean, I think that's a lot more reasonable. I think Calculate's also an extremely hard ability to use. You have to know when you want to use it. So you have to treat Bryn like a fake pass token as well, just like the Soulstone miners. So you have to decide when to use his pass token of I'm going to walk calculate or charge calculate. In addition to, I want to set that up prior to lots of action occurring, but not prior to me wasting a bunch of AP walking around or flipping things or doing other stuff. So it's in this weird place where you have to, it takes games to get used to. The first few times you're gonna be like, sweet, I used it once or twice and it didn't do anything. Or I used it at the end of the turn and then I had 5 cards and all I did was my opponent attacked me and I flipped my 2/13s on defense and then I attacked and I got my 5 and my 6. It takes understanding of the timing, but once you get it, it's really strong. It's just a lot of the time I find that if you use it twice, you're left with 6 or 7 cards, and then your opponent just attacks you twice and uses up the advantage you just got.
Is there any keyword models, AJ, that you're also bringing in pretty common, or we pretty much covered the core crew?
Yeah, I mean, Trixie. So we'll go back to Trixie Bell. Sorry if we skipped there. She doesn't do a lot for me. She's got the law. She's got the ill omens. Ma's already got that. She's manipulative.
Yeah.
She's got don't mind me. She's 7 stones. She's got a place, but she's just not as good as other stuff. We're just talking Trixie models only. Survivors are quite good.
Yeah.
Cheap scheme runners. Range 14 gun, hard to kill, armor 1. Very good gun damage as well. They're good.
Have you proxied test subjects yet?
Not yet. No, not yet. I don't know if I'm keen on them or not at the moment. They're very good. Should we talk about them?
Yeah, let's talk about them. I mean, they're only 4 stones, so they can only be so cheap. Good.
So they're defense 4, willpower 2, movement 5, size 2. They've got 6 health, armor 1. They've I can't remember if they've got a gun or a melee attack. I think they've got a gun. Yeah, they have got a gun.
They've got
range 8 attack
that ignores armor.
Yeah, they're the only thing in the game what removes armor without a trigger. I think in the Bayou out of everything, and it does 1, 2, 4 damage. It's got a 0 to remove scheme markers. But where their strength is, if you put them in a pit trap, it increases their defense and willpower. So the defense goes up. And
so for those of you that have not looked at it, and bring it up in the app when you get a chance after you're done listening, because you look at that failed experiment, which is what AJ is talking about. And remember, we're living in a world with pit traps. And the biggest thing to notice is the lack of a cap that is on there. So there's nothing stopping somebody from being injured 5, injured 6. So all of a sudden, just think about that with failed experiment. So I think with test subjects, AJ, we're not going to hear about them until they come out. And then I think we're going to hear a lot about them because another model that I've seen them in play. Personally, and it's hard to believe that they're 4 stones.
Yeah, their sculpts are incredible too. They're going to be
pretty modern.
They're going to be really cool. They're like monkeys and an alligator and a chicken with brain in the jars for their heads.
Now about their shock therapy. We haven't even talked about their shock therapy on the card. Well, with like little lass moves them, instead of being pushed, they can take the charge action instead.
It's so good.
Well, they also scamper, right? So anytime you scamper, you can charge with them. The problem is they have a 0-inch melee. So if you get in weird positions where your opponent's like, oh, I'm going to use 0-inch, so I'm going to be at 1 inch on the charge, so you can't interact and I cheat. Okay, well, cool. I'm going to go ahead and push into melee with you, and now I'm charging you in the middle of your activation. There's not a lot of value to that. I mean, they do have grab on, so if they do that, they can then immediately slow the person who's attacking them. So they have the ability to be these weird counter triggers to just in people's turns. I think them having forage as well, and the fact that they're not insignificant, means that at some point they may be valuable.
They're 4 stones, Oliver.
Yeah, because they're 4 stones. They have armor 1, and they have the triggers, right? And then obviously, if you put 12 cups of coffee on them, they're minions. You can wibble wobble in a pit trap and get infinite, but that's not good. So stop doing it, John, and everybody else in the body chat who keeps trying to.
I want to talk about Sparks, AJ.
Oh, I think Sparks is very, very underrated.
I think he's awful.
He's very situational. He's very situational. I get where you're coming from. I played him against a Petita crew, and because he's got hostile work territory, hostile work. Let's get it right. Yeah. He just shut down Petita, passing on a card to let another family member, and plus all pit traps within 1 give you damage 1. But they can give bombs in their belly, which is really good. I don't know if you've seen the upgrades bombs in the belly. Put them in a Rooster Rider. If they kill them, bang, they explode. Cause 3 damage. It's a different play style, but if models bunch up a lot, like Jackdaw and that, it's just a way of...
It can be nasty. And I think as I'm going through this with you guys, I think one of the challenges that you guys have to be facing, which might hurt Sparks' case a little bit, is there's a lot of 7, 8, and 9 point non-stone models. So you start running out of stones to hire. So I would imagine, there's a lot of flexing going on. There's times when you would bring in Sparks. There's times when you'd bring...
I would never bring Sparks. I'm going to say that right now. I will, unless he changes, I will never put him on the table. I played him aggressively in the beta. I tried to get him adjusted time and time again in the beta. He has a huge opportunity cost in the fact that he costs the exact same amount as Big Brain Bryn. If you look at those 2 models right next to each other, he is unplayable. The only value he has...
pork chop, so.
Right, exactly. Yeah, and I would never take pork chop either. He's just not Gracie, right? He's a reckless model that has armor, but he's so weak on wounds, he doesn't do a lot. The biggest issue is those models are not designed for Moth. They're designed they're designed for Mei Fang. And they need to either acknowledge that and just put them in Mei Fang, or design them for both, right?
Well, you can run a crew with 3 survivors, test subjects, have a load of armor, but it's not going to be nowhere as good as the crew what we're running now.
That what you guys are talking about, exactly.
And once Ma is nerfed, right? Because the assumption is that at some point Horrible Harm will be once a turn. If that doesn't happen, then there's just no way it doesn't, right? Either that or focus changes or something, because taking a turn 1 27 AP action is not acceptable for the health of the game.
So if they do that and they drop it to focus 1,
then it might be worth playing. The test subjects and the survivors and all that.
Do you need Gracie then to move Mara up?
Right, and you might be able to do other stuff instead of moving. I think the biggest thing is the context of the game that we are playing right now forces you out of a lot of the decisions. It forces you out of test subjects. It forces you out of survivors. It forces you out of Sparks. I always wanted Sparks to be a cheap model. I wanted, the thing I value him for very much so is hostile work environment. It's a pretty good ability, but you don't take it. It's kind of niche. But more importantly, his ability to negate armor and shield. That's the only thing that can do that. Yeah, it's the only thing that can do that in Bayou. Armor is our biggest weakness. But the one time that I really would want to take that would be into Hoffman, and guess who can't have their armor changed?
Yeah.
So why do I care? Why would I ever care? And he's such a cool looking model too. He's got a wrench.
He is cool.
I love that model. He's one of the reasons I picked Bayou. And my love of the sculpt has waned because of how bad that model is.
So AJ, we've talked about Gracie, who's versatile. Is there any other versatile or out of keyword models that we need to mention?
Probably 2. I'll mention one quick. It's not. It's very situation if you're facing Pandora, but Bayou Gate is a good one to throw in 5. Give them focus, flurry. And they've got stealth, so if you're facing the gun line, they can get up there with the. It all depends who you're playing against. Very situational.
Sure.
But a model I've just got to appreciate over the weekend is the First Mate. He is
okay, talk to me about First Mate.
So good, the First Mate. Let me just find his card here. I want to get it perfect. Right, so his defense is only 5, willpower 5, move 6, size 2. He is the ultimate score your points model. He is great he can jump in for claim jump. He can run for outflank, power ritual. I know you're going to do this with the miners, but it's something else. For plant explosives, he's fantastic. He's got showboating, so he can draw a card. He's got butterfly jump, so he's defense tech, so he can move back 3. If he takes a scheme mark within 6, he can draw a card. So that's okay, but it's his leap. It's really good.
Yeah, his leap is great.
His leap's great. So he's got, and it's a place as well, which is really, really good.
He's a model that he's not cheap, but he can very often justify his cost because he's got the defensive tech to keep him on the board so that you can hopefully get multiple turns out of him, and he's got the ability to impose his will or escape when need be. So it can often make him worth his money. How about you, Oliver?
He's got stealth. He's got stealth as well.
Right, that's the defensive tech that just makes it so hard.
Part. You put gorilla suit on him as well.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, it's expensive,
so you can't.
But he's going everywhere, and he gets into combat. He's beat. He's got a built-in ram, so he's doing min 3.
So he can put out the damage.
He can put out the damage. Even when he leaps, putting a ram, he does attack. He's just.
There's a reason we're seeing. There's a reason we're seeing First Mate hired out of keyword a good bit, and it's because he's good.
So I think that First Mate is probably the only place where I actually don't hire First Mate ever, and the reason, and this is where AJ and I's play styles might differ, right? For me, if I'm playing First Mate, I'm dedicating at least 4 stones to First Mate only. So the biggest things for him is his leap does not have a built-in mask. And you want the ram trigger because, again, you want to be AP efficient. Right? You can give him fast by hitting the wooden spoon with Maw and then knocking him in, or Little Lass and knocking him in, or shooting with pit traps. You actually have a lot of ways to set up his ability to his pounds, basically. But the biggest thing for me is I don't feel that he gets his full value unless I am mitigating his actual wounds he's getting hit for with stones or buying rams. If you buy rams with him, he can min 4 people, and that eats people very quickly. You can pouncing strike, so he can jump and then hit people while he's in melee. He's very suit focused. He's very hard focused. So even though he would have 3 focus on him in a game, he's a lot softer. I look at First Mate as a 13 stone model before any other upgrades on him.
I can see that. I mean, he can be resource intensive, right?
He's just really resource intensive to get his full value. And when you do, I mean, Greg, you played against my first mate, right? I mean, I killed Archie in a single activation with him. He's bananas. Like, I love him, but I will do it once Maw gets nerfed. I'll put it that way, right? And until then, it's just those pressures of stones are not something that I have an abundance of. So,
well, both you and AJ have been preaching about it. Is, you know, there's a lot of really good 6, 7, 8 stone models that are in keyword that, you know, it makes it harder, I think, to flex in that, you know, that tax thing. And that doesn't mean that first mate's not good.
Right.
It doesn't mean that first mate can't be effective in Trixie.
Right.
But, you know, are you going to get full value?
Right. And that's basically like my thoughts. Now, with that said, there are some things I do take out of keyword occasionally. If I am ever in an event and I am forced to take Vendetta, and I don't know why I'm playing in the event if I'm playing Vendetta, but if I do, I'm bringing Raimi. Really good
definitely.
with refocus.
Yeah.
Obviously, you move him with Gracie, you give him the 4th one, and then he takes 2 shots with focus at 24 inches. He's killing whoever he needs to. And then you're leaving him off to do whatever for the rest of the game. He's 6 points, you don't really care. You just replace a Bushwhacker with him, you know, and then you lose 1 stone out of your cash. It's not apocalyptic. Other than that, I have been crazy and brought Mancha Roja once or twice. I don't think that's actually. Yeah, he can min 5 people or min. I think it's min 4. No, he's min 5. So if you put him into position, and again, it just goes back to the Gracie tricks, right? So if you and it's very expensive. So you put Gremlin suit on Gracie, you can push him into the sides of people, pick them up, move them, and then he can adversary onto a model, attack them, and then basically combo attack.
I don't think he's needed. It's different play style, but
the only time I've ever really warranted or absolutely demanded him to come into play is moments where I need to remove tokens and need to remove objects on the board. The big thing is if he charges and melees something, he doesn't actually have to have a melee target to pick something up, just because of the way the layering of the rules works. You pay cost before you declare all the rest of the targets. So he has a 7-inch movement. You can move. You can pick up Karis's fire marker, discard it, and go from there. Again, it's very corner case, but I'm almost never bringing stuff out of keyword anyways. So,
well, you've got a lot of good keyword models, so that makes a ton of sense to me.
Maybe Economy. They're just hyper efficient. If I'm it's the points where the person's built a really hard tournament, and I can't bring Harness to Leyline, I can't bring Surge to Ruins or one of the other missions that is easy for Ma. And that's the thing. It's very hard for a tournament organizer to build an event that doesn't have Ma or Somer as the best option.
Got it.
But occasionally it does, and occasionally that's where your keywords come in.
All right. So I think we've got a good sense of really both how Oliver and AJ kind of build their crews and where they're coming from. We're going to take a quick break. When I get back from the break, we're going to talk a little bit about what strategies and schemes does Trixie do well in, and what are some schemes that if you're playing against Trixie, you probably should avoid. So we'll be right back. Howdy friends, here on the 3rd floor, you'll find us playing Malifaux and other games on Mats by Mars. They are scratch resistant, waterproof, wet erase marker compatible, and lighter than neoprene. Mats by Mars gives you over 40 designs to choose from. Pick a mat size, pick a design, then choose an overlay like the one for Marvel Crisis Protocol or Malifaux 3rd edition. It will speed up deployment and the placement of strategy and objective markers. If you're going to AdeptCon this year, be sure to check out the Mats by Mars booth. Until the end of March 2020, you can use the new promo code 3rdfloor320, that's 3rdfloor320, to get a 10% discount on your next order. In the notes, you can ask for the 3rd Floor logo to be put on your mat for free. Again, use the promo code 3rdfloor320 to get a 10% discount. Details are in the show notes. So we're finding with the way the keyword system works that there's a couple things to consider when you have the strategy of a pool. Now there's a lot of masters out there that can play just about any strategies. And I think Ma's one of them. I think Ma has got the tools to do just fine in all 4 of the strategies. But the other thing that you have to think about and consider is she the best, right? So if I'm going to say I'm not going to solo Ma, I'm going to bring 3, 4, 5 different Bayou keywords. Ma might be great in one of these, but someone else would be better. So, AJ, I'd be curious, where does she win that contest? Is there a certain strategy where you just say, you know what, Ma is probably the best choice?
Yeah, I would. It's a top-up with Zip, but I really like plant explosives with Ma.
Okay, why? And would it be just the mobility, or is there other aspects?
It's the mobility. With the first mate, stick 2 bombs on him, stick a gorilla suit on him, with stealth, he's going at the board. Stick 1 on Ma, 1 on each Rooster Rider.
Yeah.
Because they're going to stick their bombs on their minions coming down the flank. So the Rooster Riders will kill them, get their bomb, carry on. First mate can leap in, kill. It's an auto include.
Well, and the other thing I would think of, too, is because of the AP efficiency that you guys have been talking about, it makes denying plant explosives a lot easier, too, right?
Yeah, even the miners.
And the miners, too.
Pop up, put 1 on them. That's great. So most people you can use miners as a focus for assassins. You can use them as bomb planters as well.
Yeah, no, that's a really good point. How about you, Oliver? Other than plant explosives, is there another strat you like her in?
Yeah, I mean Reckoning. That's the main one. I agree with everything you're saying for plant. Reckoning's really good too. I think you can play Ma into anything, and she's always a potential to be our best master for anything. I think what you primarily decide when or when not to play Ma is when you see the schemes. The schemes are what's deriving that.
So let's talk schemes. What do you think are the 2 or 3 schemes that just Ma and Trixie just kill it?
So the 3 best schemes for Ma: Outflank, Search the Ruins, Harness the Leyline. If you see that 3 and you're playing against a Bayou player and they're not dog shit, they're playing Ma. It's just that simple. They have her, they're not bad, you're playing against Ma. So do not bring Hold Up Your Forces, do not bring Claim Jump, do not bring Breakthrough, because she can either shoot you when you get into her deployment, she still can reach you. She's in the middle of the board, you do not want to be there, you want to hug the edges, because she will shoot you off the board. Don't try and hold up their forces, they're all 7 cost models. They're the expensive They're the expensive stuff out of Bayou. They're just super efficient. They're super AP efficient. They can just drop all their schemes down, they can push out of melee, they can always score their harness. They can always score their search. Turn 2 every game. Turn 3 every game. And they have not just the Soulspin Miners for Outflank. They also have Bushwackers. So even if it's a weird board where you're playing against Terra or someone else who attacks models that are underground, they can still score it easily.
Especially
very nice.
Especially if you get Power Ritual as well and Outflank in the same pool. It's an auto. Sure. Absolutely.
Well, that's what I was going to ask, AJ. Is there any other schemes that you think she does well with?
Yeah, I mean, if you get Power Ritual and Outflank, especially if it's corner deployment, stick a put a pit trap with Ma and a Bushwhacker, put them in both corners.
Yep.
And then just put your Soul Minders up in the corners. Do your Power Ritual. Models come in, drop them in the pit trap. It's fantastic.
Yeah, and what I like the most, because
deliver a message. Oh, sorry. Deliver a message is fantastic as well with a Soul Miner.
Yeah.
Just pop him up, deliver it.
One thing that I like, the combination of the Soulstone Miners and the Bushwhackers helps solve a problem with Outflank, because Outflank is a very popular scheme. I've been looking at the stats as they've been coming in. A lot of people like Outflank, but I've also noticed that people are having trouble scoring it. And the reason is it's not that hard to deny it, because in your mind, pregame, it's like, oh, I'm going to be there anyway. That's easy. But when I'm playing against somebody and I smell Outflank, all I have to do is load up on one side and just take out one side. I don't have to deny both corners. I just need to deny one of them. And it's shockingly easy to do. Not always guaranteed, but it's something to keep in mind. And I think what I like about the Bushwhacker Soulstone combination you guys are talking about is you've got some redundancy there. So suddenly it's not as easy. And anybody who's tried to wipe a Soulstone Miner off the board
especially when they've shielded.
Yeah, knows how frustrating that is. Now top it off with the fact that it's not an Arcanist player who's relying on the Soulstone Miner, because they've got Bushwackers there too. That also, by the way, brought you down to half wounds on your way to take out the Soulstone Miner.
Yeah, a lot of the time you'll see, at least for me, like I'll usually favor 2 Bushwackers and a single Miner, because again, that's my usual swap. I'll throw the Bushwackers on the sides and then use the Miner to pop up one or the other. And that's the turn where I'm going to force through the 2 shielded. I'm going to put 2 shielded, or, if I'm doing deliver or something like that, I'm going to put the 2 shielded on the Soulstone Miner. Good luck getting through -3/-3 on its wounds.
Yeah, it's brutal.
Same reason it's really good on Gracie. It's -3 damage, -3 damage. It's really hard to chunk through that when you're reducing damage to 0.
I think 2 Soulstone Miners is only a guarantee for Power Ritual and Outflank. Otherwise, it's only just going to be 1, like Oliver said.
It can also be really valuable for hold up their forces. It's one of the options like you don't necessarily always see Trixie taking, but they can. And just like, all right, cool, we've activated everything. They're like, oh, you have 2 Soulstone Miners left. And you're like, yeah, I'm going to pull one next to your Master and one next to your 10-point Henchman. Did you have any actions you could do to stop this? Or, okay, I'm going to mark my point.
Yeah.
And especially with these shielded, because again, even when they're buried, you have the ability to put shield on those buried models. So you pop them up. They can't do 6 damage and then 5 more damage to those. That's a Master. They're not doing a Master.
I think that's too risky. I see the play style, and it is a good play style. I just think it's too risky, because you will score your point, but you are going to lose one of the Soulstone Miners against the Master or an Henchman. One of them is going to go out.
Sure.
So I just think it's too risky, but it's just play styles.
Yep, definitely. So, guys, let's take another break. And we get back from this break, I want to talk about 2 things. I want to talk about second level play, and then I want to give the listeners some hope that possibly they could win a game against Trixie, the Trixie crew. So let's talk about weaknesses and counters. We'll be right back.
Hi, I'm James Hahn, and I'm a patron of Third Floor Wars because I'm a henchman who loses most of his games, and the podcast has tons of valuable information to improve your play as well as what to expect from other crews. You can support them too. The link is in the show notes, or just search for Third Floor Wars on patreon.com.
Big thanks to all of you patrons out there. We appreciate the fact that you find value in what we are producing. I need to give a quick shout out to some of our lifetime long top patrons. So hats off to Nick Westbrook, Kevin Smith, Sam Newman, Stephen Morris, Craig Chuba, James Hahn, Jeremy Peace, Ambrose Ingram, and Brandon Somer. You guys are the ones that have really done the most for Third Floor Wars' Patreon, and we appreciate it. So this is always my favorite segment of the podcast, because what we really talk about here is, I think, one, with the weaknesses and counters, which we'll do second. But first, I like the second level play because, the first time you put a crew on the table, you're learning the mechanics. You're more playing the crew than you are playing your opponent or playing Malifaux. But after you get familiar with the crew, you'll play that crew a certain way. But I have found maybe after the 10th or 15th game with a crew, you start discovering something that wasn't really obvious when you first started reading the cards, when you first started playing it. So, Oliver, what are some things that people can look forward to as they get their reps in with Ma?
Yeah, so I think the main and first thing is knowing when to use focus on the defense as opposed to the offense. There are some people who you never want to focus attack, mostly people with hard to wound. So if you have hard to wound, you have to beat them by 6. You're not looking to beat them by 6. You're looking to beat them by 1 and then cheat in a severe and deal 5 damage to them. If something is not interacting with you in that way, you want to cheat on it or focus on the defense. That's like the thing that you pick up that's really granular. Other than that, I think is when to use Soul Stones on Ma herself to buy extra damage. Her melee attack does have the crit strike. I can't reiterate enough how much Min 5 does. When you buy a stone for a ram and then you put in a 13 of rams, that model is dying right now. They're going away this turn. You can kill masters out of nowhere doing that really easily. Because keep in mind, you're Min 5. You can go up to 7. When you slap someone in the face with 7 with a spoon, they usually die very shortly thereafter, especially if you charge to do it. So a lot of the time that's something you can do. And then again, obviously the main thing is knowing activation order. You have your pass activations and then you have your threat activations. That's the main distinction. You have your Bryn, you have your Little Lass, you have your Soulstone Miners, Those are your main pass activations. You have Ma, you have Gracie, you have your Roosters, you have your Bushwackers as your main attack activations. You want to save your Roosters towards the end. You want to save your Bushwackers towards the end. And again, it's because you want your opponent to have as little cards in hand as possible, and you want to just cheat Severes. Okay, you want to just kill their and you want to kill their activations.
So, Oliver, I want to come back to something you kind of talked about, but I'm afraid I don't want people to miss this. So you talked about not using a focused attack against hard to wound. And here's what's interesting about what Oliver's saying there is I think for a lot of players out there, they'd go, well, that's why I want to focus, because to negate the hard to wound. So, Oliver, let's talk about, because I agree with you, by the way. I want you to explain to the listeners why that's a bad play.
Yeah, so the reason it's a bad play is at the end of the day, you do not get the level of reward that you should be for using your focus. When you use your focus in Maw, so your Roosters are never moving on turn one, in my games at least, right? I'm pushing them again, or interacting or moving them Gracie with Roosters, because again, Roosters are size 2, Gracie size 3, she can ride with me Roosters. I'm triple shooting something and severing it. Okay, I want to kill as many actions as possible. That is my main focus, that's my goal. That's the god of the game. Kill actions, kill AP. So if you are putting your opponent in a position where you're just going to do 2 damage, 2 damage, 2 damage, I don't give a shit about that. That does not matter at all. That made no impact in the game. I want to do 3 damage to something. I want to do 5 damage to something. I want to kill your actions. If I'm using a focus, I better get an extra AP out of it. Because that's basically my logic is I spent Maw's action to generate 27 AP. I want to use all of that to be equivalent to a full AP worth of action. I want it to be as valuable as if I decided that it was good enough for me to focus before shooting you just to get the extra damage. If I'm just doing it just to be fine, that's not really good.
Yeah, and I'm gonna phrase this a little bit differently, Oliver, and let's see if I'm catching it. You only have so many Severes, right? There's literally only so many Severes in the deck, let alone so many Severes in your hand, and you do not want to be using that to hit the model. Right. You want to be saving and using those Severes because focus is everywhere. You want to use it for damage. So if you are focusing and going against a hard to wound model, you are either going to need to cheat a Severe to hopefully get a straight flip, and which means then you're using 2 Severes for that attack when you'd only really wanted to use 1. And I think that's a really important point in counterintuitive. So how about you, AJ? What are some things that you kind of figured out about Ma after you got 10, 15 games in with her?
I don't remember in the last version with Summer, there was always a setup at the beginning. Like you'd done summon in and you had to have an 8 and the Rams. And I like to have a setup when I go with Ma at the beginning. So I want to know what my first 4 activations are, so I can see where my opponent's going in the game. So so if he gets into range of the Rooster Riders, then I know how to counteract. So I think we've went through it, most of this already, but I'll just do it quick. So Ma first turn, keeps everything within 3, focus, burns the Rams, gives everything focus, drops the pit trap for a 0, draws 2 cards, discards a card. Then I use the miners, because they're already focused. Yeah? Get stunned, get a stole zone, drop him down a hole. Bury him, sorry. Then I do big brain. Knock 16 cards out the deck, and then draw another 2. So now I've gone through about 4 or 5 stones, so I'm getting a good hand. Then I get the little lass to push things in different directions. Now, that has got to be the first 4. Now you've done the first 4, you see where their enemies come forward. If they're
that's the key, right?
Yeah,
Exactly.
And if they're foolish enough to bring them forward, which kind of happened a lot at the weekend.
So they got to score right.
Sorry?
They got to score right. They're incentivized to walk forward. So
they're coming forward. The Rooster Riders are doing the business with their guns. Come to hard to wound. Everything Oliver said was right. You want them in the deck for hard to wound. But if they're, and I do keep the Rooster Riders out, but if they're down to half wounds,
that's a good point.
They can get round that hard to wound. They can get through it.
Yeah, if they have grit, then suddenly that focus might be worth spending. Good point.
Exactly.
I have shot a Rooster with another Rooster, or attacked a Rooster with Blast to do that once.
But my play style is get a really good hand to go in turn 2 or 3. It's not about. I mean, if I can knock out a couple of cheap 5-stone scheme runners on the flanks, get 2 up on the activation, or even 1 up at the activation, I'm happy. I've got 3 high cards. I'll keep them. I'll cycle it all again. I'll have about 5-6 high cards, and I'm going to go to town. And then the game, because most games only go 3 to 4 turns in the UK at the moment.
Yeah, same here in the US.
Yeah, so you've got to go in turn. You've got to keep. I think you've got to kill at least 1 to 2 models turn 1, 1 essential, 2 to 3 turn 2, and then 3 to if you can.
Yeah,
that's got to be the plan. But normally, don't just go gun hole in.
The only other thing I would add that you do kind of get later on is deciding to focus bomb a second time on turn 2, which does happen occasionally. So if you're in a position where you have deliver the message or something else like that in the crew, where you know you need to keep mob back, or your opponent doesn't move forward, you can set people up to scheme, and as long as you're focus bombing on at least 3 or 4 models, you can still get value out of it. Because keep in mind, you're using your focus on little last to either attack people or get the hauler in, because it's an attack, so you can focus on your own allies to cheat, so you're not using your cards. I've done that before, where all of a sudden my opponent's like, okay, cool, well, I'm just not going to do anything. I'm like, okay, cool, focus bomb again. And they're like, oh, what have I done? Now he can focus on defense and attacks and not care at all.
Yeah. Normally, most of my games, Big Brain never uses his focus.
Oh,
he never uses it, hardly ever uses it.
Focus defense?
yeah, I mean, no one comes for him. They're normally dead.
Yeah, they're not going to touch him. So, Oliver, what is she afraid of?
Yeah, so this is really easy. Resurrectionists. If you're ever playing into Rezzers, do not play Ma. Do not. Remember the whole hard to win thing? That's their whole fucking faction. Do not play Rezzers and Ma together. Play Somer. He just kills them. Just an instant win. So I think that's main one. If you're playing into a crew that is known hard to wound, you know your opponent, you have a bit of information, you're like, okay, I'm playing into something that has armor, or I'm playing into something that is hard to wound. Skip this, go to something else, play the attrition game with Somer, play Zoraida. Those 2 masters should cover every single thing you want to do. Do not play anything else in Bayou unless you're looking just to have fun. Okay, I'm saying that now. And you play Somer significantly more than you play Zoraida, because Zoraida is significantly better than Neverborn. And speaking of Neverborn, Dreamer is a hard counter to Zoraida, or not Zoraida, but to Ma.
Oh, really? How so?
Yeah, so there's this thing called Carver who exists, and he has an ability that says if you're in any kind of duel with him, he can suck the focus off of you before you do anything. It happens before you declare the use of focus. And unfortunately, Dreamer has the ability to mitigate attacks and force them onto Carver. So if you ever attack Dreamer, he's like, nah, you're attacking Carver. And Carver's like, oh, we're having a duel? Give me your focus, friend. So that's a big counter in Neverborn. If you're playing against a Neverborn players, if you were playing anything, bring Carver out of keyword. He's also, I believe, in Pandora, I want to say. It might be Titania. I don't know. I only play Neverborn as a second faction, and Bayou's way too fun. So, but keep in mind, he's worth bringing out keyword. Just sucking all the focus off people is hyper valuable. You want to bring your hard to wound people. You want to, if you go to attack a Rooster, you better kill it immediately. Do not do the thing where you attack a Rooster and you're like, sweet, I did 3 damage to it, because they're going to Reckless first, and then they're going to shoot you 3 times.
Yeah.
And then you're going to lose. Yeah, you're just going to auto die.
How about you, AJ? Is there anything else that Oliver hasn't covered that you think are some nasty counters to Ma?
Yeah, anything what can do obeys. So if you've got a Rooster Rider with focus, and I've had this happen to me a couple of times, is they obey my Rooster Rider to focus shoot another Rooster Rider.
Yeah.
So when you're playing Zoraida, just don't take Ma. I mean, I played Reese at the Nationals, and he was taking Zoraida, and I could see it coming, and I just didn't take Roosters.
Yeah, yeah, and I would imagine too, AJ. The thing to keep in mind is Zoraida's not the only obey out there, and there's a lot of obeys that aren't even on Masters anymore. Yep. So that is a really good point that I had not thought about. Is going against Bayou, right? Yeah. So you got a ton of obeys just within Bayou, because the Bakors can obey too, can't they?
Bokers and Criers are the 2, and Old Cranky are the 3 big obeys in the faction. So
no, that's very interesting. I would not have thought about obeys being nasty, but if you think Rooster Riders are great, wait till they're shooting at you, right?
Yeah, it's taste of your own medicine, mate.
Make sure if you do, you kill them, because if you shoot my Rooster with a focus, and then I activate him and shoot you 3 times with focus, you're dead. So don't just do 3 damage to them. Do more.
That makes a ton of sense. So guys, let's take a quick break. When we get back from this break, I've got 2 guys that have been putting their time in with Bayou, and we're going to talk about kind of Bayou overall as a faction. So we'll be right back. Howdy folks, Craig here. Now if you love gadgets as much as we do, you're going to love the new Third Floor Wars Gadget Bundle from Schooner Labs. Branded with the logo of your favorite podcast, it comes with 2 measuring multi-tools, a compass stepper for those tight and important movements, along with a compact dashboard to track your turn, strat, and scheme scoring along with your soul stones and pass tokens. It is the perfect bundle for anyone who plays Malifaux or just wants to look cool while doing it. The link is in the show notes. Check them out and help support your favorite gaming podcast. So, AJ, I like this last segment to really kind of just, talk about general stuff. And I think that one of the things that I'm hearing about Bayou is I'm hearing a lot of different opinions about how Bayou is overall as a faction. So what's the health and the current status of the faction? So in your mind, AJ, I guess first and foremost, do you think Bayou is effective in 3?
Yeah, they're not the top faction in the UK at the moment. I don't know what's about like in America. I mean, I think it's 10 Funders is what we're seeing a lot over here, and Outcasts. That's what we're seeing the most.
We see the same here.
Yeah, so a few of the top players are starting to go over to Bayou. I know Jamie's going over to Bayou for a while to try him out. I couldn't beat him with Rezzers, but he's going on to Bayou, and he can see the filth. He can stealth filth. But I think
he's got a nose for filth like nobody else, and that's a compliment, Jamie. Not sometimes I'll tell that to Jamie, and he's like, "Well, I'm not doing anything wrong." I'm like, "No, Jamie, I'm complimenting you."
He's like Matrix, like Neo. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
he sees things.
Yeah. Varney has a talent for figuring things out faster than anybody else does. So what is a problem in Bayou, it'll get used and exposed by Jamie very quickly.
Very good like that.
Because he's good at that. So one of the things that I like for me is part of what the health of the faction needs to be, AJ, is I really want a faction to, not all the time, but on a regular basis, really have a strong pool of maybe 5 or 6 keywords, right? So depending on what the pool is, depending on what the opponent is, you've really got 5 or 6 keywords to pull from versus where Arcanists were at the end of 2, where you basically, you play Arcanists, so you mean you play Sandeep, or where Rezzers ended up being towards the end of 2 as well. So I want to get a sense of how you feel about the balance within Bayou.
Well, I think it's great. I mean, I remember at the Nationals last year, I took up the 7 Master Challenge to all 7, and 4 of them was in a really good place, and 3 was just garbage. I think a lot of them are very, very equal now. I mean, okay, Mara and Summer's probably up there. I've never played Summer that much because I'm waiting for a lot of the models to come out. Mara is broken. I think she's the brokenest one out of the lot. All you've got to do is just do the holler in for the focus bubble down to 1. You'll find it be a lot less effective, and she'll come down. Zip's very good. I like Brewmaster. I think he's great. I think he's great in Reckoning, where everything's got Eelin. Zip's very fun to play. I love the showboating. I like to keep everything in keyword. Ophelia is just still Ophelia, really. Just shoots things. I haven't played a lot of Ulix at the moment, so he's probably the only one I haven't played, because it just seems, with getting my head around M3, I don't really want to. He seems the more complicated out of everybody to play. Zoraida's Zoraida.
Yep.
Don't think we've missed it. Have we missed anyone out there? Oh, I haven't played Wong, but
if we didn't miss anybody, we're fine.
Yeah, but I'd sooner have Wong as the blasts. I don't like the shock schemes. I'd sooner it go to blasts. I'm hoping with the new edition that there's rumors going around that you'll get new cards, like a different play style of how to play the Masters. But overall, I think
it'll be interesting how they kind of do that rotation. I think Ophelia and Wong, and maybe Ulix, though I gotta be honest with you guys, I haven't played against Ulix yet, so it's hard for me to really speak on that. But with Ophelia and Wong, I think Ophelia and Wong are good.
Yeah.
Especially in the right hands, they're good. but I think that what's tough is are they good enough to beat out Somer or to beat out Ma or to beat out Zoraida in the pool?
I think opportunity cost is huge. It's so
it is. It's part of the game. How about you, Oliver? How are you feeling about both the strength of the faction against other factions and then the balance within?
Yeah, so strength of faction against other factions, best four masters in the game, Terra, Dreamer, I would say Somer, and then probably Shenlong are probably the top four. And I think Ma is coming in real close in the top five. So in the total game itself, Dreamer's obviously the best master in the game. If you play Dreamer correctly, you will never lose. If you go to 5 turns and you play perfectly, you will not lose the game. Doesn't matter what you're playing. He's just hyper efficient. He does everything good, whatever.
We don't see Dreamer over here that much.
Yeah, and a lot of that's weird stuff, right? Like you've got models that like don't yet really exist, or like they're coming out new sculpts, so people don't play them. Things like that. Like it's an Ulix issue, right? Part of the reason you don't see Ulix on the table, Craig, is because Piglets have been sold out for 18 months on every single major online distributor. It's the reason I don't have Ulix. I literally do not own Piglets, so I can't play them. And I will when all that stuff comes out, but whatever. As for internal faction, I think the biggest thing is opportunity cost. Somer, I think, is by far our best master. He can alpha strike at about 80 to 90% of what Ma can. However, he wins if you go to turn 5 every game. He is the Nicodem of this edition, and I am saying that now. I am putting that gauntlet on the table right now, and I guarantee I'll be proved right in 6 to 8 months.
Oh, I agree with you.
Comes around.
I'd like to hear the podcast on that.
Yeah, he attacks in every single possible angle. He wins all of the games where your TO decides to make a hard list. He's scoring turn 2 and turn 3 aggressively anyways. He can Pig-Eating Grin shoot you in the middle of your activation and kill your model. He can summon 7-point models that have 4 or 5 AP and are hyper-focused and are impossible to kill. I mean, he is bananas. The biggest problem with him is he is hard to play. He costs time at the table. And right now, people do not acknowledge that it's a 3-turn game instead of a 5-turn game. So people don't put the reps in. They try and go into an event and play him. They get to turn 2. They don't know what's going on. They don't understand why he's powerful. And then they complain about him or they say he's not that good. Recently, I had a conversation with some of the Neverborn players who said he's equivalent to Wong. And I can promise you right now, Wong is literally unplayable. He needs a full redesign.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, he can do his cheese, right, where he just shoots Pigapults and does the weird thing with sparks and the blasts happen. Okay, sure, but did you win the game? Other than that, I think Ophelia is mediocre. I think she's fine. I think Zoraida is better in Neverborn. I do not think she's as good in Bayou because she can't bring Vasilisa. She can't bring Dreamer. And that's just too much of an opportunity cost. Ulix, again, he's an unknown. I can't imagine he's going to be super great. But again, Reckless as a crew,
it's good.
As a crew ability is probably fine. Brewmaster isn't great.
And like I've looked over Ulix a few times, Oliver and AJ, and I do feel like that's a crew that we have to see what it looks like after 10 plays.
Right. And I think that there's a potentially a place for him, right? Like it's within the realm of possibility, but again, you have to ask time. You have to ask opportunity cost. Is Somer doing the efficiency and slow burn game plan better? Yes. I can promise you right now it will be. Brewmaster, same problem. He kills people, but he doesn't kill them as good as Ma, so why would I ever bring him over Ma? Zip, he's super mobile, so is Ma, but Ma kills faster. The only reason I want Zip is because he has a blast that's insane, and Montero has a badass.
I think what it is as well, it's but in the last edition it was Wong, Summer, and Zip.
Mm-hmm.
Now it's probably about 4, possibly 5 masters you play. Guaranteed 4. You've probably gone up 1. But
I think you have fun with all of them. I will say that.
But I don't know about you, Oliver, but I try and look at my opponent, and no disrespects for them. If I think I'm going to win and they're kind of new, I'll throw out one of the lesser masters, and I'll keep the better masters to the better players. So I'm learning at the same time. Yeah,
I keep those kinds of games to Vassal and with my friends at home. If I go to an event, I'm trying to win 8-0 every game. That's just who I am. I'm the guy who played Cobblade. For those of you who play Magic, I played the broken deck. You know, that's who I am, right? I'm just
essentially what we're talking about is AJ's a better human being than you are.
Yeah, definitely, 100%. I'm going to need 2 hours, and I can rubber stamp that immediately. You know what I mean? Like,
So
it just is what it is.
we let AJ watch our kids, and we would get a restraining order on Oliver. Is what we're talking about.
What do you mean you can't make a fire? You need to learn how to eat, kid.
All right, guys. Well, wow, that was a lot of information. We covered really, I think, a ton of stuff here. And for those of you that have not started playing Ma, I'm with these guys. Even when I've had my ass handed to me by her, she's fun to play against, believe it or not. It's a fun crew, and you should definitely give her a run. Real quick, AJ, is there anything that you'd like to plug?
No, not really. I can't think of anything to plug, to be honest with you, mate.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll just give a shout out.
Of course.
Yeah, I'd like to thank a pal of mine, Tobias, for setting me up the headphones and helping me with a little bit of tech and stuff like that. Yeah. So
yeah, thank you, Tobias.
Yeah,
literally,
thanks,
you wouldn't be here if it wasn't for him, right?
No. They call me the old man of Malifaux. Not as old as Paul Butler, but the second oldest man of Malifaux.
Well, then you and I are the mirrors, because everybody calls me the old man over here. So, Oliver, how about you? Do you have any plugs?
Yeah, so first and foremost, I'm always going to apologize to the head administrators of A Weird Place for John and Matthew, both being in my meta. I'm so sorry that those trolls come from us. I'm sorry I got them into the game. Second, join the Bayou of Malifaux on Facebook. That is the Bayou group. I've got a lot of opinions. You can hear some of them there. Some of them may even be right. And then the Southeastern Virginia Malifaux group is the Malifaux group where we are in. If you're in Virginia, the North Carolina conference or the South Carolina conference, whatever, West Virginia, anywhere that would travel, you're welcome to join. Even if you just want to see our less censored opinions. I've really held my tongue a lot on this podcast this time.
I'm proud of you, Oliver.
Yeah, you can join us there. And then obviously there's the Bayou chat on Facebook as well. It's linked in the announcement section on the Bayou of Malifaux. That's where we're going to be talking. We're going to be talking 24/7 about it. So,
and Oliver, I hear really good things about that Facebook chat, that you guys really do a great job as a community to bolster, right? So you guys ask the hard questions, you challenge things as they come up, and really talk through things. So if you are a Bayou player and are not in that Facebook chat, I would reach out to Oliver when you to get added to it, because I've heard only good things about that.
They're
Facebook
the ones
chat.
who found the FAQ, basically the trick with, or the FAQ, the adjustment or whatever with Bryn. 6 months later, they're like, oh wait, the layer doesn't work the way everyone assumed it does. It doesn't work the way the spirit of the rule was written. We need to flip the 10 before we do the, flip for the thing. So they're great guys. I really appreciate them. They're all good friends.
Well, AJ and Oliver, I do appreciate it. I'm sure we'll have you both on the show again. And for those of you that stuck around to the end, I appreciate you listening. Take care. Be sure to check out our shop on thirdfloorwars.com for the latest gaming apparel and gear. While you're there, check out how the USFO Tour is shaping up. How does your conference compare to the others in the United States? Where do you rank nationally? Get those models built, painted, and on the table so we can see you at the US Masters Invitational in October of 2020. Also, rate and write a review on this podcast for us. It really helps us find people almost as cool as you are. Thanks for listening. Howdy friend, Craig here. Is this episode making you realize you need to buy some models? Gadzooks Gaming is my favorite online retailer because of their large selection, killer prices, and great customer service. Don't you hate buying an entire crew box when you only need one model? Gadzooks sells crew box models individually and saves you a ton of money. They even have free shipping to the US and Canada if you spend $100 or more. Swing by gadzooksgaming.com and make sure you tell them Craig from the Third Floor sent you. All the details are in the show notes.
Yeah, Nick found a hard counter. He has discovered one.
Oh, good.
It's disgusting.
Good.
Maybe you auto lose the game.
So that's Oliver. I'm going to start with you on second level. AJ, I'm going to move to you, and then I'll go back to Oliver to start us on weakness encounters, and then go back to you, AJ. So we'll start with Oliver and then bounce to you. The thing with second level play, AJ, what I'm looking for is not necessarily what's some advanced play that you do here. What I really like to find out in this segment is, if I've just started playing Ma,
Okay.
After you get in 5 or 10 games with her, what did you kind of figure out about her, right? What are things that you didn't notice at first, but after you started playing her a lot, you did notice? And what we're going to try to do is help those new MA players maybe speed up that process.
Do you want me to talk through the setup of like the first 5 activations, or ignore that, or?
It depends. It depends on whether you think that is something that you pick up only after you've played her for a long time, or is it something that's relatively obvious?
I think what it is, when you play her, you're just moving through the gears, learning what all the models do. But then every faction has every crew has a first 4 or 5 turn setup, first 4 or 5 activation setup. And Ma has to have a first 4 or 5 activations.
That's great.
Setup.
Let's do that then.
Yeah.
So let's do that. So I'll start with Oliver, the one that will bounce to you, AJ, and then we'll move to weaknesses and counters. I'd like to keep this segment under 10, but let's see how it goes, okay? Hold on one second for me, AJ. I'm sorry. What, honey? You want to watch YouTube where? No, honey, no. Next time. What we'll do is next time I'll have you and I do this. You want to do it together? Here, you want to say hi to everybody? Wave to everybody, say hi.
Hi.
Okay. All right, run downstairs. I love you. I'm sorry about that, AJ.
That's all right. I had to tell my kids to go to bed, and to be good, I'll take them bowling next week.
I'm going to tee up the question again.
Yeah, no worries.
So, because I talked like an idiot even given the question, because I was distracted. All right. So, well done, guys.
All right,
yeah, sorry about that. I was a bit nervous about when to cut in, when not to cut in. So
no, you did good.
Just conversationally,
you did good.
I'm just like, yep, agreed.
Yeah, I think you're a bit more pro at this, Oliver, because I'm thinking, shit, I forgot that. I should have mentioned that.
I took notes. It makes you feel any better. I'm not actually better. It just.
Well, and here's the other thing, AJ. It's why I prefer having 2 people on for these deep dives. Is it's too much to cover for just a host and one guest.
Right? Yeah.
So you guys have the ability of really leveraging each other. And when you're talking, it's hard to remember shit. But when you're listening to somebody else, it's easier for you to remember, so you can jump in and fill the gaps.
Yeah. So when I jumped in with the gorilla suit, was that okay?
Yep.
Or
that's great.
That's great.
Perfect.
Yeah. I didn't want to jump in and be disrespectful.
Nope. And here's the thing, AJ, is I don't give a shit if Oliver agrees with you or not.
Oh, no, I, mate. No offense, Oliver.
Yeah, no. So
I've been married too long. I disagree all the time. Me and my wife.
Yeah. So and vice versa. So the key is what we want to do is somebody needs to be able to listen to this and be a better MA player when it's over.
Yeah.
Or listen to this and do a better job playing against MA. That's our goal.
Right.
So,
okay.
And nobody's going to say they told me too much.
Yeah. No. I can.
Let me get some water before we.
Yeah. Take your time.
Yeah, I'm going to get a bottle of water out of the fridge. Is that all right?
Yep.
1 minute.
And the one thing I talk about having too much information. The other thing too is, we want to just cover what is really used. So I mean, we're not going to go over every model, obviously. But part of this core crew thing is to say, hey, here's what I always bring. And then I'll weasel out of you guys some tech pieces you bring and things like that when we get to the next segment when we talk about the pools. So
I think there's only roughly about 10 models you bring in a MA crew all the time, really. Tops.
Well, there's also, and this is just before we jump back in, this is probably something we might want to discuss. There's actually a whole other build mock that I don't think it's good, but it exists.
Well, let's cover what you actually play, and then
I'm just saying for the very end, if you want to say are there any other things like this is how you guys both agree is the best way? Is there another way to play that kind of thing?
Let me see how time goes, and I might prompt that. So that's good.
Just throwing it out there.
I'll bring us back. I think for the sake of time, guys, what I'm going to do is just do the first question. I'm not going to worry about the keyword.
We forgot about willpower deals, didn't we, as well? Anything willpower deals really.
Yeah, that's fine. I mean, it's like decent, but that's only like a couple of the models, and they're so far away.
And that's also kind of Bayou wide.
Yeah,
that's how you counter Bayou is willpower.
And armor.
I think you touched on it perfectly. I didn't want to cut in with it, but I did play Zoraida, and I had to be wary of getting my Rooster Riders, obeying them to shoot another Rooster Rider, and you burn up a focus and dead.
I'm going to tee you up and edit that in, AJ. I like that. So I'm going to toss to you, and I want you to talk about that because that's a good call out. So give me just a second. I'll
eat your own focus.
I'll edit that in. Okay. All right, that was good, guys. I'll edit that in. All right.
So you said you're just going to ask.
I'm just going to do how does the faction look, and we'll keep this to maybe 5-10 minutes.
Well, I think it's just broken. I think the new keyword's more exciting. I'm just going to toss it out there.
So when you say how does the faction look, what do you want to?
The strengths.
Yeah. So I'll probably start with you, AJ, and I just want to kind of where do you think Bayou is right now as a faction? Do you think they're in a good place? Do you think, like Oliver does, that they are just broken and someone needs to fix? Someone needs to bring them down. Yeah. How do you feel about the master balance? Do you think that there's really only 3 masters to play in Bayou, or are you getting 5-6 masters? That are getting action. Yeah. So I just want to talk about kind of the health of the faction. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Cool.
All right, we'll start with you.